Welcome back to another episode of Cheers Beer Talk. I am the host, Maalik Stark, as always, and today we have a really special guest. Before we get started on the guest, we'd like to give a special thanks to the PLCB for making the show possible, and be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Cheers_PA, and look out for new episodes weekly every other Thursday. And without further ado, Adam Chamberland of Cartel Brewing.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Like he said, we just want to talk about you, man, and Cartel Brewing. So how did you get started? When did you get started?
As far as brewing, just another one of those home brewers that was playing around with recipes in starting in 2008. Got more serious and kind of semi-addicted to it over several years after that. Invested in more equipment, just kind of more of a hobby with friends, and was encouraged to start entering beers and different competitions. First one was was the 2015 Lidditz Craft Beer Fest. Ended up winning that whole thing, which was kind of encouraging, with a big espresso stout.
Oh, nice. I was going to ask what kind of beer that was.
I kind of came from a little bit of the coffee world, and playing with coffee and beer and kind of finding the best method of infusing and blending coffee with beer. It was kind of a hobby for a while. So a lot of darker stouts, cream ales or imperial cream ales. At the time, there wasn't a lot of coffee beers out there. They were there, but they're nowhere near how it is now. So, and found that a lot of people that don't like coffee or beer or stouts ended up liking that beer. So for whatever reason, I don't know, somehow the combination of those two things made it work for people. So,
Yeah, I think mixing both of them, because again, like I'm gonna stay on trend here. Like speaking of like the typical like homebrew thing, almost every episode I have the name drop that I'm a big fan of like stouts and darker beers. But you said like you came from like a little bit more of like the coffee thing.
Well, yeah, I kind of say that half jokingly. I mean, for 5 years, starting in starting in like 2002 or 2003, I worked for Starbucks and on campus at UConn, where I'm from in Connecticut.
Okay.
And I feel like back then was a whole different world with that company than what it is today. And like they really were passionate about coffee. And I had the opportunity to travel to York, Pennsylvania to their roastery, do pour overs, sensory panels. Went through their Black Apron program, which is kind of like a coffee Cicerone. You take tests and it's a huge kind of overwhelming palate type of experience for the coffee world, or at least internally within Starbucks, what they had put together as kind of their own sommelier of coffee type of program. So getting to experience that, decades ago was kind of cool, and getting into beer in the late 2000s, it was just kind of an intriguing combination of flavors. So I started playing with those types of recipes. I mostly would do stronger beers like barley wine and stout and Belgian quads, and kind of more of the robust flavor beers in most of the home brewing time that I did that. Played with some other recipes too, but I've actually been able to brew so many more styles since opening Cartel, and that's been really cool to explore all the different intricacies of the styles that there are, be it heavily popular styles or near obscure styles or old styles. It's nice to see some of those coming back and making a comeback. So, one of our more popular beers over the last couple of years was just a simple English mild. And of course, I took that exact English mild recipe that comes out around 4% and scaled it to 12 and called it an English barley wine.
Oh,
one of our Yeah, that's one of our. We're about to release a 20-month rye barrel aged version of that beer in November. So it's kind of cool to take a style and turn it into another style along kind of the same, family of English styles, old ales and strong ales and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Is that like what you prefer to do? Like, is that like the favorite style of yours?
Yeah, if I could just spend like at least half my time building and developing recipes for barrel aging and darker beers, stronger beers. I mean, obviously they're not like the overwhelmingly like masses sellable styles, but they do have a market. And I feel like the market is slowly growing for barley wine and barrel aged stouts and things like that. Again, I know they're popular within what we might call like the beer elite or the 1 or 2% of beer drinkers that are chasing that stuff. So it's not like considered this scalable thing. It's more for the people that really appreciate it. But I think there's an emerging customer base that are appreciating and pursuing those styles more than before. At least that's kind of what the trends I've been starting to see. And I think that my theory is that with a lot of people that were really into beer and stronger beers, or just craft beer in general, kind of migrated to whiskey in the last few years. Like there's this, whiskey is kind of like where beer was 10 to 15 years ago. I feel like where it was kind of starting to surge and blow up and grow. And now it's the craft distilling scene is kind of where craft beer used to be when they were in their growing stage. So a lot of these beer fans started getting into bourbons and cask strength bourbons and super strong ryes and like all of these super hot, robust, strong, whiskeys. And when your palate is like developed and accustomed to that, I feel like when you go back to beer, it's like some of it just tastes watered down and you've kind of numbed yourself to an extent. It's kind of a theory. I mean, because it's like you're going back to a beer from this robust 130 proof, Elijah Craig or whatever, and then picking up a 14-15% barrel aged barley wine is kind of like the gateway back, or kind of if you're going to have a beer, you want to taste, you want to have a similar experience, and obviously, you can enjoy one a little differently than a glass of whiskey. You can have a little more volume because it's not as high alcohol. Just a theory, it just seems like that has kind of been a lot of the people I've talked to getting into barley wines now. It's just they're coming from a heavy several years of chasing and tasting and consuming all of the amazing whiskey products that have emerged or become more popular lately.
Do you think it's a thing of just not having a lot of places don't have that style on tap or like available, more so that like kind of set those things apart where it is like a 1 or 2% of beer drinkers that like that?
It could be an educational thing. I find now that at least from my conversations and just the data that I have available to me, I think consumers are looking for either the lightest, lowest ABV thing that's flavorful, or the other end of the spectrum, something stronger, something more. You're going to sip on this thing and maybe have one or two, or take some home and have a cigar by the fire with them or whatever. I'm seeing like those in between ranges of like the 6 and 7% beers. Like they're still solid and they still move, but the popularity I've seen based on just sales data is in one direction or one extreme or the other. And it could be an anomaly, and it could be something that doesn't like continue to flesh out over time. That's just what I'm seeing. And I think it's an education thing too with your question. Not everybody knows what a barley wine is. So
Mhm.
you have to educate some people. They think, oh, is it a wine? Like it's wine? No, it's, you have to kind of tell them, where that style came from. And, um, it's strong beer. It's beer that's as strong as a wine. And we're not using grapes. We're using barley. That's kind of the simpler explanation. I mean, you can go much more detail, but that seems to be what kind of makes sense for most people. And it's a short answer that gets to the point.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think the same way because I think about whenever I started drinking beer or at least like craft beer, um, there was only like one sour or Berliner Weiss that I could like name. And 10, 9 years later, like it's like a lot of places have those. And it's just like that knowledge of like knowing what that was. So like not knowing what that was definitely like kind of kept me away from trying it. But
Mm-hmm. Well, Berliner Weiss, I feel like that the lines have been blurred on that style. Like, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. It's just like if you have like a true German style Berliner Weiss, like there are people that don't understand when they have that. They don't think it is that because all these other breweries are just taking kettle sours, calling them Berliner Weisses, and then dosing them with a ton of fruit that far surpasses the pump or two of raspberry or woodruff syrup that you would get, in Germany. We have a local brewery here that produces an amazing German Berliner Weiss, and they offer the woodruff and raspberry syrups, and it's like 3.2% or something like that, and it's proper kettle soured, I believe. Like it's not like I think they do it the German way. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that they do everything correctly, true to the original style with modern equipment, of course. So, it's kind of funny to see the sour categories get kind of blurred a little bit.
yeah, I feel like just as far as like everyday people who just drink beer and like a certain type and they want to anticipate like what to expect from beer don't necessarily like know that like in depth. But yeah, that's back to Cartel Brewing itself. They talked a little bit. You said that like the location that you all are in isn't the initial location of the brewery and all of that. Where were you all before then?
We had a small space, basically a 2-car garage converted to a brewery with a shotgun style kind of tap room, like a long narrow tap room space we call the beer cafe. We still use that term, but it's kind of like a coffee shop for beer. It was on the corner of Prince Street and Jackson Street, about a block from the train station in Lancaster City.
Okay, yeah, I know where that is.
North of the ballpark, right next door to like, the Neptune Diner, which has kind of been kind of a long-standing iconic diner in Lancaster City. So we were there. We opened in March of 2021, and it was kind of on the end of all of the COVID stuff. Kind of overlapped into our opening, but everything went pretty well. It gave us a small space to incubate recipes and kind of hone in on some stuff and figure out what we're doing, create a customer base, and build a small following. And then our lease was coming to a conclusion at the end of last year, and the property was kind of in limbo. We didn't know if we'd be able to stay or not. So, and instead of waiting for that to manifest, not knowing what would manifest, we kind of got proactive, and this property became available initially for sale, but ultimately we were able to lease the space. We got a pretty good deal on the lease, and our landlords are the former owners of the craft beer restaurant gastropub that was here. It was one of my favorite places back in the day. Man, I could come to the bar here at this very space that we're occupying, and they had some of the best beers you could get. Around. I don't know if you have ever been out to Hunger and Thirst during their 12-year, 12 years in business. But I mean, there were beers that you had to travel or trade for that they would get sixtels of just through the network that they put together. I mean, I could drink Hill Farmstead, Cantillon. At the time, those were, pretty difficult to get in like 2014, 2015, especially on draft. So, and the food program was great. So we ended up moving in here in July and then opening and moving all of our stuff, and we had a target of November 17th to open, and we hit the target, and we had soft opens on the 15th and 16th and hard open on the 17th. So we're coming up on 1 year at the new spot.
Oh, nice. And what kind of system are you on? Like, is it a pretty big system in comparison to that older one, or is it?
Oh no, we brought the old system over.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, we started with a Blickman 5-barrel electric system.
Okay.
Great system, great price for the system for what you get. The efficiency is amazing. I would recommend it to anybody looking to start on like a 5-barrel system. We have added several 10-barrel tanks so we can double batch. Nice thing about doing some of these lighter beers is like we can brew once and get 10 barrels out of a 5-barrel system if you do it right. And being able to dial in our efficiencies and know exactly what to expect out of our system, we can brew a 10-barrel batch without having to do 2 brew days or two singular mashes. Like we can do a single mash and get 10 barrels out of it, depending on what beer we brew. So that's always nice. So we didn't really have to invest more in a bigger system, at least at this point. We'll see how things go, and maybe we'll have to at some point, or maybe we'll have to just keep using 10s with a 5-barrel system.
Fair enough. Are you all distributing pretty heavy out of that location also, or is it all just kind of in-house?
It's mostly in-house. We have some keg accounts at local spots. I think distribution doesn't really make sense at this stage. We did invest in a single head canning line. So I guess instead of looking to distribute, I think the next opportunity is to just start packaging more. And I think that based on our capacity here, like between keeping the taps full here in our tap room, carving out liquid for smaller canning runs, plus the wholesale accounts that we're building, for bars and restaurants, could keep us, in good shape for a while. I also think it's just the market. I mean, it's challenging right now. Everybody's kind of going through a shift with like, what's the next thing, or like, what's the next model for kind of operating this way. And I don't think wholesale and distribution necessarily makes sense for everybody. What might make sense is, have a main location, have a flagship location like this, and then if we make more beer, potentially opening a second tap room in a neighborhood or in an area that that makes sense, and then just drive kegs out there and move your product direct to consumer that way. The margins are a little bit better. It can help the business grow a little bit better than having to crank out a lot more volume for a lot less margin. Those are just some of my thoughts. I mean, I'm not opposed to distributing, but I never thought we would get necessarily to that size where we would be like this massive thing. But who knows, maybe.
Yeah. And as far as like the area that you all are in comparison to like that first area, like, is it pretty much like, is it a good response? Because like Lancaster is pretty close. Like I know like a lot of people that live there and would just like, no, this is where we go on this day. Like, is it getting a pretty good response from that area?
Pretty good core following, a lot of regulars. We anchor like the School Lane Hills neighborhood, which is this awesome kind of mature neighborhood. And we do, private events and stuff for the neighborhood, and just trying to kind of be the spot for them. We still need more people. I mean, there's so many people that probably still don't even know that we exist. It's kind of amazing how that works. And the more people I talk to, they're saying the same thing. They're like, we have a ton of followers, but we still get people every day that live like 5-10 minutes away, and they never knew we were here. And it's, we're coming up on 4 years old in March. So I think creating more awareness is more necessary now than it might have been 5 years ago. Back when people would just they would chase the beer, or they would come for the beer. Now it seems like they want to come for a different experience that is accented by the beer or some other component of the business. So you have to that's why, and I kind of begrudgingly, like, I don't want to like chase every little trend or thing that everybody else is doing. And then it gets a little saturated or watered down. Like, trivia nights are great and fun, but like, I don't think that works for us. Cause for every night of the week, you could throw a stone and it'll bounce off of 3 different trivia nights going on. So it's just like, we don't want to like pull away from our friends who have established trivia nights, and then everybody gets, and it's kind of, instead of one person having X number of people regularly, now there's 6 choices, and now those people that want to do it are split between 6 places, and then everybody kind of loses. So we were trying to find what is our thing that we can do that hopefully won't be replicated by 6 other places, but can't control it. It happens, but
yeah, especially like in close proximity also. Like, I think when it does come to this place has it, this place has it, this place has it, if it's not a true difference, it just becomes, all right, well, which one's easier to get to? Like that kind of thing.
And then it's funny because for us, it's like we tried doing the trivia thing for a little while, and we had some people that were coming and enjoying it, and kind of were disappointed when we stopped doing it. But at the end of the day, it was like we had a lot of customers that were regulars that they would not come on a trivia night. They just don't. It's distracting. It can be loud. It can be, sometimes. And we've always wanted to be a place where people can have a conversation and relax and enjoy themselves and meet a friend, or have a couple of beers, kind of like that that coffee shop kind of culture has kind of bled into taproom culture now. And it's hard to do that if half the room is echoing with some sort of entertainment program, whether it's trivia or something else. Sometimes you just want a space that is chill, and you can just have a conversation without any distractions. So I think we're just going to keep focusing on delivering that experience. And we might do a special event here or there. But I don't know if it would ever become like a regular thing.
Yeah.
Like a one-off thing here and there that's like a special thing, and then it's over, and then maybe we do one again in 6 months or whatever. It's not going to be like every Wednesday this or whatever. We do that with food. I mean, obviously we do different food specials and stuff throughout the week. But yeah, so trying to remember where that question started. Sorry, I can get rambling sometimes, which I've heard is good for podcasting. It's better to talk than to kind of have
to not talk.
So I think I don't
know. No, that's cool. No, I don't like. Again, I don't want to hold you up too much, but why brewing? Like, what made that be like? All right, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, like why brewing itself? Because I haven't talked to a lot of people as new as me. Like, I've only started brewing since 7 months ago. So like, and I never asked that to anybody either. Like, because I feel good about it myself. Like, I love it.
You said 7 months ago. All right, yeah, you hang in there.
That is the right feeling.
I really honestly don't know. I don't know. It was kind of something that originally I wasn't planning. Like, I enjoyed homebrewing, and I wasn't planning on opening a space. And then when the concept of craft beer kind of went from it seemed to kind of shift at one point, like maybe in the 2010 to 2020, probably 2015, 2014. I don't know. So there was a time where I felt like it was shifting from macro craft beer to micro craft beer. Like people were least, they kind of shifted from like going to the grocery store and grabbing a 6-pack off the shelf and would rather support the local guy with a tap room 5 minutes from their house and buy beer there to take home and meet the person who made it and drink it 50 feet from where it was made, and kind of having that connection that you don't always get in other places. I mean, great beers, absolutely great beers, are on store shelves. More great beers than ever right now are at store shelves. But at that point, it was a little different, and it became more lucrative to start smaller and have kind of a model like this. And so I was like, okay, if that's going to be the case, then I will, take a shot at it. And then we got all of our stuff together. I had a couple of partners at the time, when I first started, and we signed a lease on March 1st of 2020, and then 2 weeks later, like, the world shut down. And I think what brought me into wanting to do this back then doesn't necessarily exist anymore. Just the culture of it. Not to sound like a downer or a negative. Things change, seasons come, seasons go. Progress happens. New generations form, new trends form, new things happen. Beer isn't going anywhere. It's just going to look different going forward as we progress as a market and a world. So that's been the challenge for me. It's just because, like, what got me fired up and got me really excited about it, and I'm still excited about, like, the beer and making these beers that I have always enjoyed. What's challenging about it is I'm spending so much of my time, and this probably just comes from running a business, but in addition to that, I'm spending so much of my time doing things that have nothing to do with why I started doing this, which is very, it can be very challenging and frustrating at times. If I'm being real, like, you can ask anybody that knows me, like, I shoot from the hip. I mean, I real talk all the time, like, full transparency all the time. Just, this is how I feel. Like, I'm gonna be honest about it. Be like, this is, and I think more people should do that, because it would cause more. It'd be nice to see a little more unity. I mean, craft beer has been extremely united and supportive, and yes, we compete with each other, but we're friends and we help each other at the same time. And no matter what season we're going through as an industry, like, that support system might look different year in and year out, but it should still be there and adapt just as much as we have to adapt to what craft beer is now and how it's marketed, how it's sold, how it's distributed, and the experiences that are delivered with it. Sorry, another long-winded answer.
No, that's a good answer, though, especially like that's a real thing. Like, I don't think anybody has. I listened to another podcast where people from another state talk about, like, what craft beer is to them, and it is about that. Like, I don't want to say togetherness, because, like, they're not holding hands making beer and, like, all that kind of thing, but, like, the closeness and, like, unity of it, which is exactly what you just said. So no, like, hearing that is I think that's how it should be. Yeah.
You really have to love the craft of it and the industry and the just what it is to really get into it, because it's hard work. Everybody, there was a time where people thought, oh, I'll just buy some tanks and throw them in a building and we'll print money. And it's just like, no, it takes a lot of work. It's hard. It's long weeks. It's like, if you're looking to make money, there are a million other ways outside of this. Because I came from more marketing consulting, brand consulting, advertising, consumer buying behavior, psychology of, how people behave. And when you understand that, sorry, my screen's shaking a little bit. I used to do that for 12 years, and I did that for the 12 years that I was really into craft beer and really into home brewing. And so when you're in a career where you're constantly analyzing how people behave and what creates those experiences where the customer and the business selling to them both feel like they won. Creating that win-win situation is like magic. It's the best thing you can do because you want your customers to be like, this is the best value I've ever got. And then the person selling to them, this is the best transaction I've ever had. Like, you want everybody to feel happy and warm and fuzzy. Well, doing that in different industries while following an industry that I enjoyed and was homebrewing, you're constantly looking at that industry through the lens of what you do on a day-to-day basis. And so that's what's kind of challenging now, is because it's like everything I learned about craft beer in this industry over 12 years, I feel like I have to relearn again. I don't want to, you could call it a post-COVID world, or you could call it whatever 2024 is right now and where we're going. But I felt like I've had to relearn everything that I thought I knew several times. So it's very challenging.
Yeah. But you're still so like that means that it's still a care in that. So that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Won't hold you up too much longer. What's the address of Cartel Brewing, just for everybody who doesn't know right now?
The address?
Yeah, the address or the hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are. Our address is 920 Landis Avenue, which is just off of Harrisburg Pike, and in between like F&M College and the Wegmans at Park City Mall. So we're about a mile off of Route 30 at the Park City Harrisburg Pike exit. And not far from F&M in downtown. So it's a nice location in between.
Nice. That's
we're open every day. We're open every day of the week now. We're open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 to 9.
Okay.
Friday, yep. And then Fridays and Saturdays are 12 to 10, and Sundays are 12 to 6. And we might, those may change or modify a little bit. We might, but that's kind of been what we've operated at. So evenings for most days, and then lunch on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Full kitchen. They're doing a great job. The staff here is incredible. So fortunate to have attracted such great people here. We've never, little brag, but we've never really had to post a now hiring. We've just had great people that we've known through our community, through our friends, and that have come on board and are helping us create the culture that we have here, which is amazing to see, because it's like it's way beyond anything I do or anything I could ever do. Without those people, the culture that is here and the vibe that we have doesn't exist. So really grateful.
Yeah, so definitely check them out. I super appreciate you hopping on this, man. This has been fun, very informative, insightful. So I'm sure we'll be talking all the time now, even if you don't reply or anything like that. Like if you're too
I got a little busy for a little while, but
I'm just I'm just talking about just from a brewer to someone who like owns a business, like those are completely different worlds. So no, like I said, I completely appreciate you doing this, and thanks for tuning into this episode for sure. Look out for new episodes every other Thursday, and cheers, man. Thanks.
Cheers.